Well, hey there! Welcome to another video of ALIS, and we have a lot to talk about. So, we have a new version release. Main feature is the dropped pin, and I literally had to make a list of all of the other things we also did in this release. So we have a lot to talk about, so let's get started on all the new stuff. So first up is that we have added in our map, we have our map layers, and now we have additional settings there. We saw that some airports really have a lot of markers on faulty lights or observations, and sometimes you just want to work on one or another subject. So now you can remove faulty markers or observations or dropped pin markers on your map. So then you can really see better the asset status or only this or that type of marker. So know that this is accessible here. We're also going to talk a lot about observations. Know that we have a new table type. Before here in the chevron, we have our assets with asset details, and now you can also toggle that to an observation table. You can change it here, but know that you can also toggle it here in the burger menu of the table that you are in. So later we're going to talk about why that observation table is very practical. Good. So now that we can focus on the actual assets, let's talk about the dropped pin. So up to now, you could only create observations that were related to an asset. But let's say that you have observations that are not related to an asset, like things for infrastructure. So we're talking pavement, markers, maybe even wildlife and fencing issues. We often get also requests for, can we register grass cutting that needs to happen? So now on any location, you can drop a pin. So know that you can also have, again, your own location where you're at. So for example, here now I am on our training runway and I can drop a pin. So I can drop a pin and I can even move it around. So let's say that here I'm on the tarmac and there's a crack in the tarmac. So obviously we can zoom in as much as we can. There's a problem here or exactly on my location. So now we can say, yes, there is a problem. So we can select a certain category. And these categories, as you know, are flexible. You can change them or add them in the settings category editor. So let's say that here we can register FOD, or we can also register crack in concrete or pavement or whatever you had. As I said, you can modify this. And you can also say, this one is 5 centimeters long, and you can add any other text and images as our usual observations. So you see that here we have the locations, the lat long of our observation, and we can create it. So now you see that we have our observation created and we can now click on it. And what do we have here? We have a quick view of observations. Now, before we had to go to this like detailed view of our observations, and we can still do. But if we would be clicking around on dropped pin observations, or also, for example, here we have an asset, we can directly access our observation here. You can. So also here you can now add comments, again, add any attachment that you want, or browse through the other observations. So really practical in how that all works. So dropped pin observations, it's basically a whole new world, a whole new set of workflows that you can do for registering infrastructure or anything that has not been registered in your system. So let's say that you also have signs that you want to add and you don't have the exact location. You can actually do a survey now and export that data of the observations to then use that for asset creation. So, but also for assets that are not there and you want to put them, so really helpful. So how would that work? Now let's create a new asset. Maybe here, let's say that we have a new regulator. Okay, so before we had to find our locations in Google Maps and then use that in our Excel sheet. So now we can just drop a pin for our regulator. You can give it a category, something like new asset, survey new asset. Here we go. We can give it a name. It's CCR14. It's a CRE and it's 20 kVA, for example. Yeah. So we can now create this asset. And maybe you have multiple of these survey points. So now you can use our observation filter. Let's have a look where it is. It's here on top. We can filter for the category and we can filter out the survey new assets. So now we only have one. You could have multiple. So let's say that then you select them and you can now flip to that observation table. You see we have one observation that is filtered out. We have one selected. And you can now say export the selected observation. You will have the details of that observation. So we have it here, for example. So we have our CCR 14 and we have the severity, we have all of the details. So if you want to do reporting on observations, you can really have a good list. If you know how to work with pivot tables, you can do fantastic things there to get a better overview on what type of observations you have and in which states they are, this and that. But now let's say that you want to create an asset from this observation because it's a survey asset. Or a survey observation. We can also generate asset import sheets. So what we did there is we actually take the observation and we already give you the fields necessary to create an asset from this. So you see here name. So this is now the name that we put into the summary of that observation. And you can now add anything else that is a minimum field required for asset creation. So here I'm just going to create a generic asset, but look at your different asset types, which is here asset classes. So that can be a CCR, an MCR, or whatever asset type you have already created. If it's not created yet, make sure to first create it in your system. So, and here I can now say main area is, for example, substation. And the sub area is sub 1. So now we're going to save this and we're going to go back into our asset table. And we're going to say import assets. So now we can just drag and drop the file that we just created. In our system, one asset found. Yes, thank you. And insert it into my system. So now we're going to remove our filter, if you remember, for that survey. And we're going to see that here now in our location, we have our substation and we have our sub 1 that is created. And here that you see that our asset is popping up, that it is created. So this is a great way in order to add new assets if you want to. You can really do it in batch or now one by one and add additional information to them. So with this new dropped pin observation, because now, for example, our observation is finished, we can actually close it and it will be gone. Know that we have also added a print function here. What does it do? It gives you a nice report of the actual observation that is there with the content. We didn't add any details or pictures, but you would get them there as well. Yeah, so very handy. Good, so we're going to close this observation because we don't need it anymore. Our asset was created. So, and now we can just do the regular preventive maintenance, corrective maintenance, anything necessary on our asset. Good, let me have a look. So remember, also not just observation export for asset creation, but also export for other details. We have our reporting. We have a new set of reporting that we have done, and it's pretty awesome. So we had a request from a lot of customers to say, look, I want to have a better report on everything that happens ad hoc in our on our airfield. So which lights were reported faulty and unfaulty, and when did that happen, and all of the other maintenance tasks. So what did we do is that we have added in the map, we have added a new template. It's called asset history. So let's do it here. You see that we can select one or multiple assets, and we can say, okay, show me for all filtered or selected assets, we want to have our asset history. So now our asset history report is running, it's ready. We're going to open up the Excel sheet. Here it is. So now you see that for each history entry that was done for any of the assets, there is one line for that maintenance registration. So now you can filter out and also filter on date range or type of action or type of task or effect on which ones you got. So or how many or which one or how much. So that's all very practical. And if you are familiar with pivot tables, you can do some great things there. So for example, here I can open up a stop bar report that we created together for one of our customers. And you see that with these pivot tables, we can do some great things. So we can easily say only for the month of November this year, show us all of the assets that were marked faulty or reported, or how many observations that were created. So you can use the slicers, you can use the task selection, everything that you have in pivot tables. And this is also new for us, so we're going to further create reports, and once we have some good visualizations and reports for you, we'll see to put them in standard into your export sheet, so you can really just select the type of report you want to have and even bring them to PDF style of reports. So, but feel free to already do some experiments with the asset history. There is some great information there. Also on torque values, you are able to parse out some data. So feel free to go and experiment, and we will do as well, and bring you the best that we are able to visualize for you. Good. So the dropped pin is really a big change for us. And I hope it can really help you to register more things, get a better holistic view of your airport. Maybe one last thing is that we have also added some great zoom buttons. So if you have multiple, or a big airport, or you have multiple airports and you want to you filter out for one certain area. So for example, I'm going to put myself here. I can now use this zoom to fit button, and it will give me everything that I have in my instance. So this is a test instance, and you see that I created assets a bit all over the world, and immediately it will zoom out to show me all assets that I have in my instance. If I would select, for example, only one certain area, for example the stop station area we created earlier, zoom to fit, and there you go, it only directly gives me that one area. Or if you would have one asset, you can also just directly go to that asset and zoom in. So you don't have to do a lot of scrolling and panning and zooming anymore. Using these zoom buttons are really practical. And then we have, on popular request, another feature that I'm happy to show you is that you can now remove reports. So whenever you generate a report in the system, it will store it in your instance and you will not able to remove it. So that sometimes could clutter your reporting section. Because maybe you created a false report or one that is not really useful. So now you can remove, for example, the latest asset history. You can just remove it. Or you can use any of these search terms. So for example, I want to remove everything that is from the year 2021. You see here, everything shows up. You can select multiple, or you can just select everything and say delete selected report. So we hope that really helps you to clean up a bit your reporting section if there were too many that were not there. So we really try to add features on popular request. If you have another feature that you would like to see happening in ALIS, reach out to us through our service desk. Here on the question mark, you can go to the help desk and let us know what we can help you with. If you have any questions also on the new features, let me know and we can help you. See you in another video. Bye bye.